Hey guys, my name's Tyler. Um, I figured I'd make a video today because um, I like to use my start date was August August 2nd, 2018. That's the date I like to use, but I don't know how accurate it is. Might be plus or minus a day. If anything, it's minus a day, but whatever. Close enough. Whatever. Um, so I got some notes here. I just figured I'd jot shit down to make it fucking a little more coherent, cohesive. Um, so I guess we'll start. For those who didn't watch my 7 month, I made a video about 5 months ago in March. I don't know, just decided to make one, but in that video I talked about pretty much where I was, but most importantly like everything I did up until this point or up until that point. So I'm just gonna run through that really quick. So I watched my first anime December 26, 2017, my 15th birthday. Um, for some reason, I just instantly fell in love with Japanese. And despite being a kid, just edgy teenager, um, who for my entire life before that was like fucking weeb anytime someone liked anything Japanese. Despite that, within about 2 weeks, it's like the second weekend I remember of January 29 or 18, January 2018, the second weekend, I was looking up how to learn Japanese. I found Take Him. I read through like a good part of his complete guide, and I signed up to WaniKani soon after because gotta learn kanji somehow. Um, and then it's probably like March. Matt made his RTK is the best way to learn kanji video. I found Matt through the RTK, or not the RTK, the WaniKani forums, people shit talking him. So I watched his video. I thought it made a lot of sense. The second time I watched it the first time and I was just on the blue pill bandwagon. Um, but after I thought about it a bit, I rewatched it and it made a lot of sense. So I watched through pretty much all of his videos and I read AJAT. Sorry, there was a sound. And this was like mid March 2018. Um, and then I started RTK the beginning of April 2018 at 25 kanji a day. However, I didn't start immersing um, because I didn't, while I understood the theory, I didn't understand how to put it into practice. Because I never joined his Discord, so I never really, or I didn't join his Discord yet. It took me like a year to join his Discord from that point. But so I didn't have any of like the resource sheets. So I didn't know what websites I could download stuff from, where I could watch stuff other than like Animelon. That's like the only place I watch or I knew where I could watch stuff. Um, and I did go there when I actually started immersing, but for right now, yeah, I finished RTK around June 21st, which is like pretty much the end of school around where I live. And I deleted my deck practically the same day because my retention rate was obviously dropping incredibly quickly. Or it was, it was dropping steadily, I guess. And I deleted my deck, and then I restarted it soon after at 15 kanji day because I didn't do it well enough the first time I thought. And but whatever. I finished it again still, but still then I deleted it right after. Um, After I finished it the first time, I started Take-Hims. I read through Take-Hims, made cards. I finished a few weeks later. I repped that deck for like a month, and then I deleted it because I felt like I got what I got from it, and I felt like I got enough from it. Uh, but then like mid-July, I started watching things because I thought, well, now I can actually understand stuff because I had read through um, some of Take-Hims, which obviously pretty stupid of me. Still was kind of blue pilled, I guess, or I just lacked the ability, I lacked the know-how to put my theory into practice. Um, but I was watching maybe like 1 or 2 hours a day. This was for like 2 weeks, and then I met Luke Skirum on Twitter. If I remember to, I'll put his Twitter in the fucking description or whatever. But we had a long talk, and he put me on track, and then pretty much for the entirety of August, I immersed multiple hours a day, probably 40 plus hours a week. Um, when school came, my immersion took a big hit. I continued to immerse, not the ideal amount, maybe 1 or 2 hours a day, because I was just put into honors history, and the workload was like way fucking bigger than the regular history class. Never really had a choice in it either, so whatever. Um, I finished RTK for the second time around late October, early November, and ended up deleting it because that was the time pretty much everyone was just getting rid of their RTK decks. Like everyone made the decision, so I made an export and then I deleted it. I wasn't happy with how much immersion I was doing, so I started watching a bunch of different shows and dropping shows very, very easily, and that shot my immersion up a ton. I don't know how much, but um, it shot up for like a month or two, and then in like the start of 2019, it started to drop a bit, and then I started talking to old internet friends and stuff and playing video games, and I started slacking more and more. And then there was eventually times where I would go for multiple weeks without um, doing any Japanese other than my reps, which I always did. And right now I'm actually about to hit a 500 streak on Anki. Um, because I actually I always did my reps no matter how many times I stopped immersing and I took like breaks. I don't think I ever lost too much ability other than listening ability. I think it pretty much just stayed the same, maybe went down a little bit, but then as soon as I came back, it started going up again. And I would get back to where I was pretty easily. I feel like listening ability comes back very quickly after it degrades. Like once you build it, when you build it for the first time, it's like very slow, and then if you stop, it drops, and then if you come back, it's like you get right back to where you were. Right? Much quicker at least. Um, Obviously, those breaks though they kind of hindered me a lot, and I don't think I am at where I should be. For 1 year, I think this would be like a 9 month kind of thing. Like I feel like my ability is more 9 months than a year, but that's to be expected when you probably have 1.5 to 3 months worth of time where you didn't actually do any meaningful amount of Japanese stuff. Um, where am I right now? I would say I can definitely understand majority of stuff, probably close, probably like 80 plus percent. On depending on the content of the scene or whatever the show I'm watching, it could be 95 plus percent. Um, I don't really get those days now, honestly. Well, right now at least, I'm not getting those days where I feel like I understand nothing. But I might get those again. I don't know. I've only read one book. I finished it probably like a month ago. Kimi no Na wa. It was I started reading it probably in like January, and I read maybe like I want to say 100 pages between January and then maybe like mid-July or no, early July, and then I read the rest of it and it's like 250 pages, so I read most of it in like a few days, probably like 4 or 5 days. I felt really proud of myself. But other than that, I haven't really done much reading. I mean, I have read like probably 15, 20 volumes of manga, but manga isn't necessarily that difficult. Um, Also, I don't really honestly, I don't really like to read because it's kind of like it's work in comparison to listening. Because in listening, I can just watch the show, and then if something pops up I don't know, it's gone. It's a mile behind me already. I'm way on past that. But when I'm reading a book, especially if the book isn't from something I've already watched and I can visualize very easily, like Kimi no Na wa was, um, it's like I have to face every single one of the words that I don't know, and since it's a book, there's a lot of words. So for that reason, I think that's why I don't read very much. I well, I don't specifically go out of my way to read. I do a lot of reading, um, just based on my immersion, or if I'm interested in something in a show, like I watched the drama Boku no Itajikan recently, and I was like reading about ALS online, like Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or whatever it is, Lou Gehrig's disease. I think that's right. But I read multiple pages for like probably an hour. I do that pretty frequently, honestly. Like I'll just read about something I'm interested in at that time. Um, what else? Recently, or I realized that maybe the reason why I felt so it felt like such a chore to immerse at this point was because I just didn't like anime anymore, which I think was very true because I came to this realization, I think, because the other day Calvin was talking, or not the other day, a week and a half ago, Calvin was talking about how, or he was asking if there was a website like My Anime List for dramas, and I was like, you know what, I should watch some dramas, because up until that point, I had only watched two dramas. Once switched, it was a Netflix original. It was okay, and then Juyon Sai no Haha was another one, and they were both decent, but they weren't so good that they made me like want to watch dramas very much. Um, but okay, so when I saw Calvin and them talking about it, I thought, you know what, maybe I should go make an account and like try watching some dramas. So I did. When I signed up, I added like a few of the people I knew that were gonna be on there, like other MIA Yateru peoples, and I Luke actually was the one. Because we hadn't talked for a while, but when I added him, he sent me a bunch of recommendations, and I watched all of the recommendations except for the one which I had to drop because the ending kind of sucked, like the last few episodes, and I was done with it. But I watched him, and I really liked him, so recently I've been watching a shitload of dramas. Like I've watched probably 40 hours in the last week, which is back to where I was last August, which is a good full circle. 40 hours I was getting pretty much a week last August, 40 hours for like the first week of August, or I know it's not the first week, but switching to watching dramas, it's really re-energized me obviously by the fact that I am getting so many hours, because probably before that I was maybe getting 10, 15 hours of immersion a week with anime because I just didn't like it. Majority of the things I was even watching was just rewatches because everything I tried that was new seemed to just be shit. So I would rewatch stuff that I knew was good from before I stopped liking it. Um, I finished the monolingual transition. That took me 10 months, I would say, because I started it around the end of August 2018, and I feel like recently I finished it. Uh, the reason it probably took so long is because I didn't really try. It's not like I was trying to rush through it. I was just only making cards. I would just make the card monolingually, take all the words I don't know in the definition, learn them bilingually, and I ended up with like 700 bilingual cards. And at the moment, I actually have like 600 monolingual cards. Yeah, so all of my bilingual cards pretty much come from the definition or come from the dictionary definitions. So, I mean, that's probably why it took so long because there was so much I had to learn. Um, but anyways, I doesn't really matter because I'm pretty much done with it. Most definitions I read, I can understand. If I don't understand it, I'll just look up the English definition because I'm not gonna go learn six English or six Japanese words so I can understand the one word. I'll just learn the one word. I'll learn the one word bilingually, and then I'll just get the real, like, specific Japanese meaning from immersion. Funny thing that's been happening to me recently is like I realize like I'll talk to myself in Japanese like when I'm just doing like mendokusai shit. I love how I put the I kind of like pronounce shit weird. It's hard to switch between my like English accent and my Japanese accent. Um, but I'll talk to myself and I won't consciously make sentences or like say things. I'll just let it flow out, just whatever comes to mind. And I realize that a lot of what I say makes sense. It's like it's correct because I know I've heard it. I when I hear it, I know, oh, I've heard that before. And so I know it's correct. And like more so, I'll say a word that I didn't know I knew, but I'll say it and then I'll think, wow, I'll realize that I did know what it means because when I say it, I can just feel the meaning. I guess it's kind of weird to explain. It's like I can't really explain it to you, like the theory versus practice. I guess that's kind of what it is, but I can't really explain it. Like you'd have to um experience it for yourself. I don't know if anybody's had that feeling. I don't know. It would be neat to know, but it's kind of like what a baby does, right? Because they immerse for probably a year and a half. I don't know when babies start to talk. I'm gonna say a year and a half, and then they start to just say things, even if it's just short shit, and it's correct sometimes. And then eventually, they're speaking. Um, so I think, yeah, that's about it, honestly. Uh, where I want to go next, I'm gonna try to not let my immersion slip when school starts again. Because my course load is not going to be nearly as big as it was last year, except for the only class that I think would be very hard at all would be physics, but science is like my shit, so I doubt it'll take too much effort. Um, it's more like if they give me large quantity of homework is the bigger problem than like how difficult it is. Like that's the only class that I would be worried about anything being difficult, but because I would say that I'm very good at science, I doubt it would be difficult for me. It's just that if it's a lot, I don't know, it probably won't be that much, honestly. But I'm thinking of starting shadowing around my 18 months, which would be like February 2nd, 2020. But obviously that could change depending on how I feel. If I don't feel I'm ready, or if I feel I'm ready way before. It's mostly going to depend on how my comprehension is doing. Because if I'm near 100% comprehension, like 95% comprehension on the people I want to shadow from, I'll yeah, I would say I could start at that point. If I'm easily understanding majority of a majority of the people I want to shadow is saying, or like audiobooks what they're saying, then I'll start. I should probably start reading more too, but we'll see. I don't know. If I start shadowing around 18 months, I imagine I could be pretty proficient by the time I hit like 20 or 24, so 2 years. And if I'm good and I feel confident, I might start outputting around then. I don't know. I decided to hold off on pitch accent a bit just until I read through the NHK accent dictionary I did Yoga Pants' abridged version of his monolingual deck, but I deleted that because like it's kind of like a since it was a pre-made deck and I had no emotional connection to it. It's like it was kind of like RTK, like my retention started to gradually drop, and so I decided, you know what, I got like probably the most common words out of it, like the most common words I probably do know now the pitch of, so I'm not really worried about it. I'll learn the rest of the words later. So I deleted that deck, and I'm gonna wait until I read through the NHK accent dictionary and get and like learn all the rules and stuff before I start making cards with pitch accent. I made a few, but then I realized like, well, I don't know the rules, so I'm not sure if this is correct. Like I knew some of the rules from like Dogen's series, but I wasn't confident at all. So I'm just gonna wait until I do that before I start doing that. Before I start making sentence cards with all the pitch accent shit um, marked. I think that's it. 20 minutes? Holy shit. It felt like fucking 5, dude. Alright, well, 1 year down. Here's to another one, guys.